community. That was one of the things that I was going to speak about. Well, I got into it in one way. So when the gathering started, very, again, organically, hate to use the word, through a way of us wanting to thank the contributors. So when they first started out 4 years ago, all the founders would travel to each city and would do a series of very, very small long table dinners. And then when readers wanted to get involved, we opened them up larger, and then someone was hired to take over the community gathering series in America, and then that moved into Europe, and then that moved to around the world. Now we have community gatherings everywhere from, we just had Odessa in Ukraine, which was cool, all the way through to like places in Fiji and all over Australia, and then
are they still tied with the release of the issues?
No, so it's a completely separate beast. And over the past 4 years, we've altered the way that we've done them. So they've gone from being more like issue release parties, gatherings, soirees, whatever you want to call them, through to, we had monthly series. So there would be different events that would go on with the same theme on the same night every month in like 30, 40, 50 locations around the world. Right now we're doing a big group every quarter, which is tied to a theme that is related to whatever issue is coming out. So the Essentials issue, which just landed on my desk yesterday, I can't let it out of the office yet in case it gets Instagrammed, which happens. The Essentials issue will be all about really working out what is the most important thing to you. So all of the gatherings that will be happening in this quarter will be somehow related to that theme. And I think what's really important about this is that reading a magazine or a book is incredibly solitary. It's very hard to read with someone else, like either literally, because we all read at different speeds, or we can be in the same room together all reading, but unless you're like yelling out lines that you like and interrupting someone else, you don't really have that kind of shared thing. Reading aloud, if you guys aren't into reading aloud, it's really fun. After you get over like kind of the third grade anxiety about starting to read out loud, it's a really cool experience. But so how do we make a magazine that is about cultivating community, a community-based activity, when it is inherently solitary? And the community aspect is part of that, of making people who are connected by this one thing, Kinfolk magazine, but read it alone. How can we get them all together? And for that reason, you can only buy 3 tickets at a time to our events, so that you don't just like buy an entire series of events out with your friends. The point is that you go there and that you interact with other people, and strengthening that community and making people feel like they're buying into an idea and a group of people that also appreciate the same things that they appreciate is one of the main aspects behind community. Yeah.
Can you give us some tips for pitching, and then kind of like the voice or the writing style that you're looking for?
Okay, I can talk about this for hours. Pitching is a strange beast that I feel that no one teaches you. It's like they teach you how to write, but they don't teach you how to pitch. Sell yourself. This is not the time to be modest. It really isn't. I will be blatant and say that if you write, "Hi, my name's Georgia. I've written for New York Times, Washington Street Journal," like if you just like jump straight into whatever the most impressive thing is about you, you probably get 3 or 4 sentences to really catch someone, and you only have one chance to make a first impression as well, my mum would tell you. So start, 2 ways of going about it. Either start with what is unique about you and why an editor would want to keep reading, or open with the idea. An idea should be able to be explained in 2 sentences. If it takes you more than 2 sentences to explain an idea, you haven't refined it down to the fine points yet, because you're not going to get 8,000 words, 30,000 words, 40,000 words in a magazine context. You've got to get maybe 800 words at the most. And so if your pitch itself is 400 words long to get around to the point, then I'm going to be confused and I'm not going to know what you're pitching me. I will always pay more attention to a good idea than to someone's resume or their previous writing, because it's harder to come across a good idea than it is to come across a good writer. And if you have a really good, unique idea, I can help people craft it, which is the whole point of an editor, is to, help people say what they're trying to say. And therefore, you need to say it really clearly. So use dot points, bolding, like just even formatting things. Don't put more than 2 or 3 ideas in one email, otherwise you just get lost in things. It's so hard to explain without I can like show you good pictures and bad pictures. It's really hard to explain like out loud. But I would say start with a bang, and the 2 things that you want to get across very quickly are why you are interesting and why you are unique, because someone will hire you for being you, and brevity when it comes to your ideas. A former editor, I'm not being very succinct with talking about brevity, unfortunately. A former editor once explained to me that imagine that your editors are monkeys, and sometimes you can give a monkey a banana, and it could be a really tasty banana, but then the monkey has to peel it and eat it, and then the monkey's hands get all mushy, and then the monkey's upset. Could still be, a tasty banana, but the best way to actually make the monkey happy is peel the banana for the monkey, chop it up, mush it up, put it on a spoon, and put it in the monkey's mouth. So make it really, really easy for your editors to understand things, because as I said, like I'll get 2,000 pictures an issue, and I will read every one of them, but you get one read through. And if for some reason you haven't caught me on that one read through, I don't have enough time to go back and do another read through. That's just the reality of it. And most editors won't even do what I'm doing and actually read through them all.
What did you call? You said you had a theme. What? For each
a theme guide.
Theme guide. What's that?
Each, if you want to have, so here's my advice for actually coming up with the ideas. Creative constraints. Put boundaries around yourself. If you say that I just want to write a great article for kinfolk, you are going to end up with a Pinterest board full of nothing. Maybe don't use Pinterest boards to start, actually. So one of the reasons why we have themes, and I choose themes for each issue, is that it provides the framework for which you can like ping pong ideas within. So right now I'm working on the family issue. Like family, huge concept. And we keep on getting like lost in different facets of it and going down these internet black holes, which I love doing and I hate doing. Like I was researching different types of bee pollen today, whatever. But so often we will say, okay, we are going to explore this one very, very particular strain today. Like we are going to only explore DNA, and then all the different ideas that spring off that. Or we're just going to explore the concept of sisterhood today, and then all the ideas that go off that. So even within a theme like family or essentials or entrepreneurs, narrowing it down is a great way to come up with more ideas. But then even if wherever you're pitching things to isn't themed, still do that to your ideas. Like if there's another publication, go, today I am only going to think about the concept of time. And then I'm going to come up with as many ideas as I think could fit into that magazine on that concept. And I bet you will come up with better ideas than if you just went, I want to pitch a story. Yep.
You just made a reference to being distracted by the internet. And I think for me, I see kind of web presence as being antithetical to slow living.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you authentically keep a social media presence and digital versions of your magazine while staying true to the mission of kinfolk?
We are conflicted. We are so conflicted. We're working it out. We really are. Because we can credit Instagram as a reason and a way that a lot of people found us originally, and Tumblr is a way that people found us originally. But we don't care for those platforms at all. Like we will sit around in the office and my art director will be poking Nathan Williams, the founder who runs the Instagram, being like, Nathan, you haven't posted anything in like 8 days, you need to post something. And he's like, but there's just nothing I want to post. Like, no, but you need, we get caught up in the idea that we have to do something just because the audience is sitting there waiting to be used. And so instead of it being just this means to an end to just continue putting information out there into the ether, we try to be very conscious about how we use it, and it is always promoting in some way the concept that yes, you're on your phone or you're on your computer, but this piece of media or this photo that you're going to look at is going to remind you that there's something else aside from that. We aren't Luddites. We're not saying throw out your phone. We're not saying that the internet is a bad thing. I think it's a great thing, and I think there is a lot of ways that community especially can be built via the internet, and Instagram is a part of that, and again, the conspiracy, the visual language side of things. But it's definitely a part of the company that will continue to grow and evolve. I'm sorry, I don't have a solid answer. I don't know.
So I was struck when we paired you two up for this, that I was struck by the fact that you hadn't met, that you didn't know each other in a town the size of this one. So how does Kinfolk fit into the Portland publishing scene, if at all, or do you not sort of think of yourself as place bound in that way?
It sounds so wanky for me to say that we're not place bound, but the whole movie, like Half the Office to Copenhagen, does show that we really are a very international magazine. So we have the 9 staff members who are in Portland, but we haven't produced a shoot in Portland in nearly a year and a half now. So most of our shoots come out of London and New York and a lot of Scandinavia. I have 2 writers in Portland out of that 20 core. And then I've got writers in Cape Town and Kyoto and Australia, not being biased a little bit. So the people who put together Kinfolk are disseminated all the way around the world. And I think that does unfortunately draw our energies to different corners of the world rather than funneling it all into Portland, which is the difference between us and I know the Portland Monthly guys really well, and we're often talking about it, that it's a very different publishing model when you're focused on localized content versus pushing things globally. And I think with any product, you need to decide, is this something that is going to serve my immediate community around me and serve it really, really well and saturate it, or is Kinfolk going to be a pin drop in Portland and then it reverberating everywhere else? But we were discussing over lunch that everyone's always like, so where's your New York office? Can you put me in touch with your editor in Paris? And you're like,
and it's interesting. I think both Bitch and Kinfolk are based in Portland, or at least still.
Technically,
yes.
the address is here.
But we both have international audiences, and but there was a pull to Portland for both organizations as a place that felt like the right place for a media organization to be, and so I think there is a kind of an interesting parallel.
Well, this is a great place to get started. It really, really is. And not just because the overheads are cheap and the beer is flowing, but there is so 2 of those 4 writers that I mentioned that came in through cold calls in the past 6 months, 2 of them were from Portland. Totally coincidentally, I get pitches from everywhere, and I feel like there is such a bubbling of talent here. It's this little microcosm right now, and I think that it's really exciting to be a part of that and to watch Portland grow as well, and for Portland to go through all of its growing pains and the gentrification and all of the negative aspects of it as well, and being in that environment and seeing it happen to the community around you makes you more aware of it happening as a brand as well, and going through those same things. It's really exciting to see the print and zine culture here is so huge as well, because you guys started off as a zine originally, didn't you?
But in Oakland, yeah.
So you said that you try to preserve the voice of each piece, but also have an overall theme for each magazine. Do you find that you have a style guide for the whole magazine when you start, or or is there one stronger voice that kind of informs how you make some changes to others? Or I know you said it was really tough.
Well, we use AP style, so I'm anti-Oxford comma, for the record.
Well, this is over.
It divides people.
I am well aware.
So I was joking that if you guys start asking me grammar questions, I'll just like start flying. So I love grammar. So we use AP style, and our first dictionary is the Merriam-Webster. But then within that we have our own style guide of things that we just think are silly, like AP style guide still capitalizes internet. Nope. And still puts a hyphen in email. And one we discovered today, Eggs Benedict, is meant to be lowercase e capital B, according to both Merriam-Webster and AP. You're just shaking your head. Yeah, like, that's ridiculous, right? And it's even things like, this is an example I always use, like bra and brassiere. Like the word bra technically should have like, it's a contraction, so it should have like apostrophes, but we of course don't do that anymore because it's in common language enough. So when do you make that choice for when something goes, I'm getting totally off your topic, I'm just going on a rant now about English. But having the parameters of, even if the way that you're using language is different, the grammar that confines it is the same. I think that really helps. So I'm really strict on most style guide things. But I have my humorous writers, I have my sentimental writers, I have my writers that I would never ask to write in first person. I have my writers that just nail second, which is really hard to do. I have overall things like, I don't like people, we try to stay away from any declarative, imperative sentences, because we don't want to, for people to feel like they have to do something, so things are always taken out of that structure. A easy way to turn floral writing into clean writing is use of the active voice. So using these, all the things I've just mentioned don't actually affect the style of your writing. It's just the way that it is, that the words and the structure that you've used is positioned. So when I'm going through an editing, I won't be changing the actual phrase, the phrasal structure of something or how it's said, but I might change the overall structure of the sentence so that the same ideas are presented in a different order, have the same meaning, and then everything flows together. That's the short answer without getting really nerdy. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. Here more.
She welcomes nerdiness.
I think that, because you asked what style should be pitched, and it's work out what you do best and write in that. Because, so for me, I'm very uncomfortable writing in first person. I don't write all that much anymore, but I've come from interviewing and profile background, so I feel a lot more comfortable writing about other people. And every now and then, when there's a last-minute story idea that gets thrown in, they're like, oh, like, and someone's like, Georgia, you just write it. Like, we don't have enough time to send it to a writer, and because I hate sending writers things, and I'm like, can you turn this around in 3 days? No writer's going to do a good job of it. And I try to like fluff out some first-person reflective thing, and it's just crap. And for the same reason, I wouldn't give my first-person reflective writers the stories that are on the history of the paperclip. Like, I gave that to Travis Elborough because I know that he nails interesting historical nonfiction. And I was interviewing people for a position that didn't end up eventuating, and I had a lot of food writers contacting me, and a big question a lot of them asked was, I only write about food, and I often wonder, should I be branching out and doing more things and writing about more things and trying more styles? And people are going to hire you for what you're good at, and there is something to be said for being a jack of all trades, master of none. But I think that in this day and age where everyone is trying to do everything, doing one thing and absolutely nailing it is going to get you further than being able to say to someone that you can do everything. Does that help more? Do you want me to keep going?
Do you have another question?
Yes, I guess I can ask more. So for this upcoming theme, can you give us like a sneak preview of what you're looking for?
I don't know what the next theme is
No.
yet. Normally I do. I need to decide within the next 2 weeks. So if anyone has a theme idea that they really want to see in kinfolk, let me know. I've got a couple in my mind. I'm really interested in time especially with the slowing down aspect of things, it's an easy way to try to really drill that in.
And you've taken pitches for family already.
Yes,
And,
family's done.
Yes.
No more family. But grandma's coming out of my ears right now. Yeah, I can't let you know quite yet.
Having heard what you said about your audience and your or your perceived audience and your mission, I can't help but see kind of a contradiction in the fact that the message, the goal is to get people to slow down, to relax and enjoy their lives, and at the same time, when I pick up a kinfolk magazine, I see this aesthetic that's almost surreally idealized. You know, it's rustic, but it's still very sort of upscale. And to get to a point like that, it seems like you have to join in the rat race to a certain extent. You can't just slow down. So it feels like, I'm just curious if you have any thoughts on, it seems like that might create a conflict for readers who are trying to get somewhere, but trying to do something anyway.
I'm that reader that's conflicted, and we were talking about this before, that I'm almost the guinea pig for the whole message, because I am the person who loves working 16-hour days. I can go without eating and peeing if I need to, just like to get through a deadline. And we're getting the reaction that you're having a lot. And that's when we realized that we need to reclaim the phrase slow down, because slowing down doesn't have to mean literally slowing down, working less hard, working less hours. For a lot of people, that's what it is. But instead, we're trying to put the emphasis on do the things that really make you happy. And for me, that's working really hard. And I'm never going to be someone who leaves the office at 5 o'clock. But when I do have that time, after I've been, working my ass off and being very productive and being part of that rat race, the time that I spend off, I really want to pay close attention to what I choose to do with that time.
But were you getting to something about kind of a level of financial security that allows you to have this aesthetic in your life? Were you getting more to that part as well, in the rat race question? Part of the question?
I guess a good analogy, or mediocre analogy, like a Coca-Cola commercial. When you see Coca-Cola commercials, they tell you drink Coke and you see people dancing and having fun, like eternal fun and so forth. But everybody knows when you drink a Coke, it makes you thirstier. It doesn't make you. And so I worry that people they see these images, these idealized images of these people living these slow lives that they want to live. However you want to phrase that.
So that kinfolk's like the beer nuts, like on the bar, that just like make you want to drink more beer.
Right,
like the
exactly.
saltiness that kind of.
Yeah, it leaves you in this sort of addictive state, or I can see it getting to that point.
Yeah, I totally hear what you're saying, and I think that part of it for me is almost making people feel conflicted, making people realize that this is something that I really want to achieve, but I feel so far off being able to achieve that, and starting that conversation within yourself of like, well, how could I get to that stage? And that's like the inspirational versus aspirational thing that I was talking about before, that we don't lie that we're an aspirational magazine. Like, my lounge room is never going to look as good as any of the lounge rooms that I have just like put into this book. But there are different parts that I feel that we can take out of the message and apply them to our own lives. And it's when people take things really literally, like a literal slow down, or think that to emulate what we're talking about, they need to wear the flower crown and be a part of that aesthetic. And as you pointed out, like the digital versus print thing is also a contradiction. We're still working out the best ways that we can push this, because it comes from a very, very authentic place. But the nature of producing a product in the first place is always going to be an issue for us, and the nature of advertising, which we didn't even really get into. Because in order to be able to push this out, we need to make money to do it. And then, this is why I find like nonprofits so interesting, that it's just a different way that you angle things and a different business model that you use. Like, do you struggle with the same things with people feeling not connected to or like contradictions in the brand, because you've got so many different ways that you can present the message that you're saying, and that people want to just cherry pick exactly what they want and don't want.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit different, but yeah, no, it would be really. I think it would be a really interesting kind of thought experiment to think about Bitch as being an aspirational publication, and what would that mean? And I'm gonna spend some time doing that. That's an interesting idea. I mean, certainly we would think about brand and identity and what it means to, you know, be a subscriber to Bitch, and what that means to be able to say that, to articulate, to have that on your coffee table, and then of course the advertising or sponsorship models we have, raises a lot of questions for us as well. Did you have a question?
Yes. You've given us some really great information about ideas and content, but I'm curious kind of about design and layout and how those decisions are.
I can't draw a stick figure. I've spoken to some of the graphic design students here before. I don't pretend to know a lot about design. I do deal with the InDesign document quite a lot, but I did a talk at Wyden and Kennedy last week, which was about the intersection of art and words, and how you need both, and both are really important to get the message across that you're trying to get across. Because if they don't talk to each other, talking words, then the message can get lost in between. But if both what the words are literally saying, how the art is presented, and the context that all sits within, are projecting the same message, then it can be even more powerful. And I had all these fancy slides that illustrated this that I can't show you right now. But I think that it's really important for writers and editors to have really close working relationships with their art teams, and for it not just to be a case of, here's the article, go find some art for it, or my art director saying, here's a photo essay, write some copy that goes with it. In terms of the actual design and layout of things, we, and you would know this through advertising stuff, one of the reasons why everything often feels so crammed in other magazines is because every last little bit of space needs to be used for cost effectiveness. But because we're not running on the same advertising model, we could afford to have blank pages and negative space that would have otherwise been filled up with other things. And that's not always the way that you have to do it. I'm a big fan of a lot of magazines that have crazy far out designs that just are jam-packed. Like, go pick up any magazine from like Tokyo and Korea especially, and they're just visually overwhelming, and I love it. But thinking about the message that you're sending and the design fitting that, I think, is really important. Did you have any other like specific questions on design, graphics?
Well, I guess
photography?
You say you only have 9 employees, and for me, I like layout. I like the design as well. So I was just kind of curious of those responsibilities and what you pass on to publishers or.
So the way every magazine is totally different, the way that it runs. So we have our editorial team, our art team. Editorial team's me, art team is Anya Verdugo. Our designer is currently based in London. So when we redesigned the magazine 3-4 issues ago, wow, we worked with her to redesign the magazine, and she came over to Portland for 3 months to do that with us. And then we basically created a portfolio of different layout options. And like right now, today I had an idea that didn't have a layout option, so I'm working with her now to take the elements of the layout to create something that fits visually within everything else. And then she drops everything in, and then I go in and I'll cut everything to space. Like, you know, I need to lose 7 words here and gain 13 words here, and doing all that kind of stuff back and forward. And then we hand over to pre-press, who does all of the color correcting and that kind of thing, and then it goes to the printer from there. And I can talk about that kind of side of things maybe afterwards if people want to hear about the nerdy print stuff. Talk to you guys about GSM for a while. Are there any other questions?
All right. Well, will you join me in thanking Julie and Georgia for coming out tonight?